We want to say very good morning and welcome to Dr. Willis Okumu, who is a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Good morning.
Thank you. Karibu, thanks so much.
Karibu sana. You came in when we were starting to, start to go off on this thing, but you could join us for that kind of conversation on another day. So thank you for being here this morning. We're looking at the global organ trafficking syndicate. It's a big deal. We've seen your face a number of times. We've read the words that you've written, but this is something that's grabbing the nation, the region, and has grabbed the world by storm.
Definitely.
So we're going to be looking into details of that conversation. We want to thank you for being in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning. Before we get into that conversation, CT goes around the African continent every week. He comes back from one country with a basket full of proverbs. Mm-hmm. So as I like to say, as though you don't have enough work to do, we're going to give you a little bit more work to interpret the proverb that he'll give and tell us what you think about it.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Thank you. On a dead tree. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week are from the Republic of Mozambique. Mm-hmm. Mozambique tells the African story very well. They get independence. Thereafter, having achieved independence through battles, through negotiations, mm-hmm. they now embark on new battles of their own from among themselves.
Yeah.
Okay? Internal conflict, and those internal conflicts go on for a long time. And all this is usually at the cost of development. As I said, given the resources that country has, one of the largest producers of natural gas in the world, mm-hmm. okay? Now, when there's a war going on, who really benefits? Anyway, there are no more wars there at the moment, except a little problem on the northern side, where they've had some, they say it's some problem with ISIS and what have you.
Yeah.
But beyond that, the wealth of this continent cannot be realized so long as these internal conflicts keep raging. Or let me put it differently, so long as we allow outsiders to allow us to fight among ourselves. The proverb: on a dead tree, there are no monkeys.
On a dead tree, there are no monkeys. Basically, saying that for the monkey to survive, there needs to be some element of life. Mm-hmm. And dead trees bear no fruits for the monkey. And therefore, livelihoods have to be sustained one way or the other.
Yeah.
And we can't do it in a situation where there's no productivity of any sort. That's what I think about it.
You put it very well.
Very well.
Late paternal grandfather used to say quite openly that he loves those people who give him things.
I love those who give me things.
Yeah.
How would he say it in Luo though?
You would bring him your shirt and he'd say this shirt is very good. Yeah. Wear the trousers to go with it.
You must come with the system.
And if you bring a shirt and the trousers says, surely this thing needs shoes to go with it.
Of course.
Yes. When my grandpa was getting to that age when he was really old and couldn't wear ties, if you needed good old school ties, Mzee Philip also would give you good ties. Yes.
Good.
Dr. Willis Okumu, thank you so much for being here. And we're looking into something that for the last couple of weeks, it is not new in terms of a global issue. Mm-hmm. But because it has come to the shores whereby it's being reported on a more highlighted level, then it has grabbed our attention, and suddenly the questions are being asked in terms of why. So we can, because I guess siblings in media, Deutsche Welle did a story about what we want to call we want to call organ trafficking. What we want to call that there are folks who are then either donating their organs and they're doing so for money, or whether this is part of a larger syndicate where there is an illegal notion about what could be happening with organ donations coming out of Kenya. Now, because we need to, last week we did have a conversation around what could be happening at a particular facility. And they were very clear to us about what they said is purely, Kenya being, and particularly this hospital in Kenya being 99%, success rate in terms of what they do, whereby other nations come with patient and donor in tow to have this surgery done, because this particular hospital does it very well. Give us an overview of the situation from your research, from your investigations, from your findings in terms of what's going on, and why then do we have an eye on Kenya when it comes to or organ trafficking?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. My name is Willis Okumu. I work at the Institute for Security Studies. And the ISS, as we call it, has been there for more than 30 years, started in South Africa in 1991. So now we have offices in Nairobi, Addis Ababa, Pretoria, Dakar, and other satellite offices in Abuja and all that. Within the ISS, I work in a program called Enhancing Africa's Response to Transnational Organized Crime on ENACT. ENACT is a consortium between ISS, Interpol, and Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime called GTOC. Now, the case that we're talking about, the research that we're talking about, and the media attention that it has brought on global organ trafficking, for me, starts in a place very dear to me, to my home area, in Oyugis, in Homa Bay County. And I started understanding this firstly based on a newspaper article that was published in The Nation, the Sunday Nation, in 2022 or thereabout. So it appeared on a Sunday Nation article twice. It was published by a lady called Angela Okoh, who I believe is a journalist. And it was very detailed in terms of how they were able to trace young people that had given out their organs, their kidneys, for about 700,000 shillings those days.
Okay.
So it piqued my interest because, one, this is in my home area, and this lady was accessing villages that I'm very familiar with. So given that I come from there, I started investigating. Of course, this is what I do as a researcher. So I started investigating, and with time I met quite a number of young guys who, at that time when I met them, this is now 2023, and that's why you're right that this is not something very new. I talked to them to understand really whether they'd done this. And of course, I wanted to see some level of evidence on the body, so scars and all that. But they also narrated how they were recruited. So this has been going on probably since 2018 or before. So people have been going to specific places in Eldoret, as you've said, and at that time they were earning about 700,000 to get a kidney out. And by the time now I was investigating, it was about 300, 400,000. So it means there was an oversupply, if you may, of young people going to Eldoret through brokers. And most of the brokers were actually people who have already undergone that procedure. So if you've been to Eldoret and donated a kidney or gotten a kidney out, then you are encouraged to get yourself another person and earn 50,000 on that person.
Okay.
So this has been ongoing for many years. And what happened is that the more we dug, the more we found people in other places, in Homa Bay, in Kapsabet, in Busia, other places, Kakamega. So there's a whole big network of people who have undergone the procedure being recruited to be brokers to bring in more.
So let me get this just clear, Dr. Okumu. So Ndu goes to hospital, and I know that I can get 700,000 shillings for a kidney. So the procedure is done. They take my kidney. They actually pay me the 700,000?
Yeah.
Okay, they pay me the 700,000 and they say, okay, Ndu, jolly well, you can go off, but you know what? We need more like you. Do you know anybody else? Go get somebody else. Bring along Charles. So I bring along Charles to also have his kidney done.
Yeah.
I get 50,000 shillings and then Charles gets his 700,000 shillings and then goes on to now bring Dennis, kind of thing. Is that what we're looking at?
Snowball, yeah, exactly.
And everybody's coming to one facility. or do we have satellite facilities around the country?
With time, there emerge related facilities.
Okay.
With time, but as we have established, the major facility was just one, which had a lot of attention, because even the people that were some of the people that were doing the surgeries were actually not Kenyans.
Okay.
This was out of the discussion that we were having with the young Kenyans that underwent through it, because they were saying that we were asking, so did you have a discussion with the doctor? And they know the doctor could not speak Swahili, and they were of this and that origin. So that tells you that it's a big syndicate. As we put it, it's global.
Is this the same facility that we mentioned in this room last week?
Largely, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, as these entire negotiations or whatever would be called 700k, 300k is happening, the hospital says all we deal with is a donor and a recipient who come in. We've done the checks and whatnot, and we're not involved in these 700 or 300,000 shillings that we're talking about. So, in this entire transaction, where does the hospital lie?
Obviously, when something like this happens, there are counter narratives, and I'm sure you're aware of that. So, from our research, these young guys are saying that they were paid various amounts of money, whether it's the initial 700 when there was a little bit of people coming in, or the 300 or 350 that is being paid in the recent times. And they are pointing out that they were paid after undergoing tests and procedures in a specific place. So for us, as far as I understand it, this is actually happening based on negotiations with brokers and agents that are representative of this facility. Yeah.
Okay. So what's wrong with all of this? It sounds to me like, medically, physiologically, you can live without a kidney.
Yeah.
And if we look at the law, there's nothing that precludes you from giving a part of your body away for money. It's not illegal.
Yeah.
So why are we making so much noise about it?
Exactly. So we see elements of exploitation. We see a lot of our young guys being taken advantage of. And if you look at the profile of the people that are involved in this, of the people that are you'd call victims of this, I'm sure you've seen the clip of this young guy somewhere in Eldoret. Look at his physique. Does it look healthy to you?
Sadly, no.
No. And this is what I've seen in several other cases across. So you find young guys in their early 20s with very little education. So already they're quite disadvantaged in life. Okay? They've probably gone to Form 4 and they're not prospects for the future. And somebody comes and tells you, please, you can do this and get 400,000, get a motorbike. You know the story. So these guys are basically cutting their life short for 400,000 shillings. And of course, you're right that there's no law currently that prevents somebody from really donating. I remember just a few years back, young people were calling Kenyatta Hospital and us saying that, please, how much for my kidney?
Sure.
You remember that? Yeah. But that shows the level of desperation that our young guys are going through right now. And therefore, somebody somewhere sits and looks at the law and says, yeah, this is a loophole. And why can't we exploit it? And the consequences of it you can see already in these young guys that are getting wasted, because after the kidney donation or harvesting, most of them run out of this money very fast. Somebody buys a second-hand car, somebody buys a motorbike, something like that. And the money runs out very fast, and you go into depression, you go into alcoholism, you're basically wasting away.
Right.
And for me, that is where the problem is, because why would we allow, and what we are quoting basically is that the law is silent on this. But it is wrong. It can't be right.
Actually, it was, for the law to exist, it must be preventing, or it must be responding to a need.
Exactly.
This was not envisioned.
This was not envisioned.
But also what was not envisioned, and purely from a research perspective, there are the ethics of it.
Yes.
You can say the person gave consent, but somebody who is economically disadvantaged is easy to take advantage of. That's one.
That's what we are talking about.
What is the international cost of a kidney in terms of dollars? It's around $260,000. So, $260,000 against 70,000. Already, if we're just talking pure maths, this young person doesn't even get a fraction of what the person who is managing all this thing receives for his organ.
Exactly.
And you see, City, you actually bring in a very important aspect of it, because even in conversation, even investigations that have been done, we've seen international individuals coming to get these organs from Kenya. You know, we talk about around 18 Israelis, and as well as, even if you just follow that investigation that was done by Deutsche Welle, you find this woman in Germany who says, "I don't regret getting this. You know, at that time I needed it. I know it was wrong, but heck."
Yeah.
I needed the kidney. I don't care. So which brings as well conversation around how deep and wide this web is in terms of organs being harvested here and ending up in other countries, because even the same facility is being questioned on how it made referrals for other individuals to go donate outside this country. So it just goes to also beg the question of the international space and where it sits and how big of a business this is.
You know what? Go ahead, Joe.
So we have to ask a question, because we asked a couple of questions last week, and this is some of the things that we need to do here, because pointing to the very fact that there are young people and even older people who then are living with a reduced quality of life as a result of this. The money, you're going to go through that money like, you know, faster than, you know, a wind chip on a windy day. You're going to go through it really quickly. And then you're going to end up with pain that your family members are not going to be aware of. This is the thing. But we did ask this question, and you know, from your research, I'd like you to then be able to answer this, that we were told categorically that people who show up to this facility will come with their donor and the recipient in tow. They will come, you know, 2 by 2. Right? And that we also have seen that this facility is world class, you know, world renowned.
True.
And that individuals who would come from outside the country would come again with their recipient in tow. So then I asked the question, if you did a nephrological procedure outside the country, one would assume that there were experts then who would then be able to finish the process, waiting for a donor on a donor list like we know exists. Why then would they come to Kenya to then do the end of the procedure? Why would they do that? From your investigations, what have you seen is the reason why they were coming to Kenya then to finish this process?
I would first of all say that probably that's not factual. That's not true. Because there's been a lot of attention on this specific facility. The Renal Association of Kenya, 2023, I think, issued a statement, but basically named them and said that, please, government, look at these guys. And these are doctors, right? They basically pointed fingers that these guys are messing things. This is not ethical, as it says, and please, government, pay attention. You know, this report that was interim report that was released by the Minister for Health. Do you know when it was done?
How long ago was it?
It was done probably a year before. Okay, and somebody somewhere sat on it for whatever reason, and I mean, it comes out because the Deutsche Welle TV gave out an expose. So for me, if you look, because I know how this Deutsche Welle documentary was done. The German journalist that is based here, he went to on YouTube after we had a discussion about this, and he found lots and lots of German patients doing YouTube videos at the doors of this facility, thanking Kenyans, okay? Thanking Kenyans for their good hearts, for generosity, all these things.
Good heart that give a good kidney.
Oh,
Yes,
kidney.
because these guys have been on the waiting list for 10 years, as they say on that video. And some of them had even kidney procedures that had failed in their own countries. And then they are told that you can pay us 200,000 euros and we fly you to Kenya and you get this thing. Okay? So this is the reality. This is the reality. So I don't believe that anybody, came here with a partner, and as a result got themselves a new kidney. I don't think that's factual. Because there are YouTube videos in German. I speak a little bit of German.
Yeah.
And basically these people are thanking Kenyans. So why are they thanking Kenyans?
So what we could see here, or again, based on your research and your findings, is that folks who've been on a donor list in their country of origin have not been able to secure the organ.
Of course.
And they have then heard that if you come to Kenya, there's, an organ for everybody, essentially. And you can essentially pay for it and go. And we can match it to this other side of the story where Ndu goes in and delivers a kidney and then can bring in somebody else. And so essentially you have them in abundance for those who are on the other side looking for a kidney for 10 years.
Exactly. And for the company that is advertising this in Germany, in Europe, is telling them that, you can come to Kenya and we'll sort you out. All you need to pay is 200,000 euros. And most of the time they want this money in cash. The same way that these victims are also paid in cash. There's no paper trail.
Yeah.
So those guys are doing online advertisement, inviting kidney patients whom they know have been on a waiting list forever, and organizing medical trips for them. They come here and some of them are taken to the park. It's a very nice package thing. It's not just about medicine.
Yeah.
It's about, come and see and enjoy
safari.
and do a safari and good accommodation. And that's why when they are done, they are on the doors of the hospital on YouTube. Very, very happy that finally, they have a new lease of life.
For purposes of this conversation to drive us, what's the difference between donation, trafficking, and we say that if I'm giving an organ, what's the difference between me just donating one and the process of trafficking organs that then would give a denotation of some kind of illegality?
Yeah, thank you. So donation as defined in law is only on two situations. So you can donate to your family member or you can donate for scientific research.
Okay.
So that one, the Kenyan law allows. Okay. But we have had cases like the ones that you're dealing with where there's an exploitative process, okay? Exchange for money and all that. We have even had cases of women going for cesarean. And in the process, they lose a kidney in the process. So they are not aware that they are operating on one kidney until maybe they have a medical situation that tells them that, hey,
you don't have one.
Yeah, you don't have one. So that goes into the criminality side of things. That goes into trafficking and smuggling and all that. But as far as we know it, the Kenyan law only allows us to donate to relatives and for scientific research.
Okay.
Anything else that violates the person or leads to some level of exploitation is basically, we look at it as part of criminality. Yeah.
City?
I was looking up the organ trade because when you talk about organs, livers, hearts, some people want eyeballs, some people want the stomach. Yes, and it depends because if it's harvested illegally and sold, the price is actually less. So it depends on, it's like when I'm going to be a little crude here. It's like when you buy clothing and you are going to buy designer clothes, they will cost you more. So it depends on where it is that is sold. But when you look at the prices that are quoted, it is a colossal amount of money in Kenya shillings. Colossal. When I mean colossal.
Yeah.
So the trafficking comes in now when it is an organized trade. It's trafficked because it's illegal. You don't traffic legal things. No, you sell them and you buy them. But when you have gone dark and you're doing something illegal, then you're trafficking it. For people to get into that business, it means whether it is the broker, or it is the hospital, and there'll be a choice of a destination where they know the laws are lax, or the people whose mandate it is to supervise can be spoken to. Okay, then you will come the numbers, and then to ensure that it's a destination worth going to, you actually do bring in top-notch experts who are actually very good at what they do. So the by word recommendation continues that this is a place.
This is a place to come to.
Yes, so think for a second. By the time this thing is becoming something that has been written about, when Okechi wrote about it, how prevalent do you think that thing was? And how many cases? By the time it comes out and you're hearing about it, how widespread do you think it is? Because consider the age where people were being asked to donate. They had to be young, youthful, and probably strong. Okay?
Definitely.
That is the age of people in this country whom we have in abundance.
Yeah.
Don't know what they're going to do with their lives. The future doesn't hold any promise.
Economically stunted.
You can't even think
That's
about
the profile,
it. Yes. So when someone offers you 71,000,
700,000.
I'm starting with 70, so that we can compare.
Yeah.
It'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
Now, when they offer you 700, what do you think you will do?
It's over.
Yeah.
You can even ask them if you can survive without one, without both.
Yes, and based off what I've also gathered, there is also the fact that whatever is harvested from the body is actually, if you have two, they go for the one that is strong, because I also hear the kidneys, there's one that is stronger than the other. So they go for mostly the left side kidney that is better for that purpose. So you're left with the weaker kidney that will leave you dependent on medication for the rest of your life. But even as we talk about that, you mentioned that the law allows for donation to a family member or for research. Does the law speak on anything to do with you know me, kidney, we've agreed, I donate to you, or the law is just silent, and that is the point where now the traffickers are taking advantage of?
That is the loophole. That is the loophole, and therefore the syndicates that has moved this thing for the time that it's been running, they are not idiots. They went to the law, they understood it, and they found a loophole, and they know, as City says, there's a huge market of young, desperate, economically, people in despair, and they recruited very fast. And what has made these guys successful, if you can use that word, is that they have a huge network of brokers. Huge net, and the promise of 50,000. So it keeps coming. It keeps coming. I had a discussion with somebody I know last year, when some journalists were asking me about this, and I called a guy who was a broker, and he told me, yeah, I've taken a client to this place. So it keeps giving. It keeps giving, and then also the youth, the young guys that have gone through it, are also, they are tomorrow's brokers. So they know they need the next 50,000. So they will convince their friend, they'll convince their cousin. It continues, and that is the loophole, because the law doesn't talk about can I donate for money.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where we see the problem, isn't it, though? That there's an exploitative nature of this, because you realize that folks are in a desperate position, and then you're able to do this. But we're not looking at then what happens later on in terms of the care. One of the things that we did ask in terms of quality care or follow-up management after procedures, and it seemed to be a little bit vague in terms of what happens if there are callbacks, follow-up, for what happens physiologically to the folks who come in for these. Is that something from your research that you found, that folks who go through these procedures then, have a poor quality of life afterwards?
They do. You can see it from the way the body looks after a while. You find this guy's losing weight. You find that guy's complaining about endless back pains. You see this guy's going to depression, going to alcoholism. So you can see that the trajectory of the quality of life goes downwards immediately. Because of course, when you come back, you are rich. By any standards, you have these hundreds of thousands that probably you never had before. But it runs out very fast. They go into, I know a lot of them went into border. A few of them bought second-hand taxis. But then, so what? The moment that money runs out and you have your own medical challenges that are kicking in almost immediately. So, people also still expect that you have money.
Right.
Because you are supposed to be having 400,000.
Surely.
Where did it go? So back pains, they told me that a lot of them have these back pains that are never ending. And I believe that is because of the place they were cut or something like that. A lot of them, you could see that even if you talk to their family members, they said, it doesn't look like it used to before. And of course, you talk to their mothers, or like that mom that was there on TV. The mothers can see their children wasting away physically, losing weight and all that. Yeah. So these are, and of course, I'm not a medical doctor, but these are some of the things that I could hear from families and friends.
In your research.
Yeah.
So we have seen a flurry of activity, especially after, this expose, that we have heard from the Ministry of Health that they wanted to do an audit of this particular facility. We've then heard after that by executive order from the president that the license of the one individual who was practicing then essentially be suspended or temporarily revoked, something to that nature. Is this sufficient? Or do you think that it's the beginnings? Or is this the trajectory in which it should take?
I think given that there was already a bit of an investigation by medical practitioners and government itself that had been done probably a year before and was only released after the documentary, I think it's a little bit too late. A little bit too late in the sense that we know, as much as there have been suspensions and all that there's a possibility that this thing has spread mostly across Western Kenya, because we could find the people that are talking about having undergone the same procedures in other places, in Kakamega, in Busia, and all that. Okay, so I don't know how these current actions, really prevents somebody from being exploited in Kakamega or Kisumu or Homa Bay or anywhere else. Okay, because this thing has snowballed. People are looking. Kenya, we have become a very exploitative society, and people are looking at how to make that next coin out of the person sitting next to them. Yeah, and that's why as people who are investigating organized crime, we are now seeing young people being hired, young girls being hired on surrogacy issues, and that is also very exploitative. We are seeing young girls being paid for, what do you call it, the eggs in the womb. All these things happening, and all these things are organ trafficking in one way or the other. So how does these current actions then cure whatever has happened? I think it's I would say that it's a little bit too late, and we probably need more action, more kind of policing, more attention to be brought to this syndicate, because advertisements are still ongoing. In Europe, as much as perhaps there's a license withdrawn or this and that, I don't think it prevents anybody from doing it in any other place. Yeah.
The one place where one sees a preponderance of organ trafficking is India.
Oh, yeah.
Because you only need to look at countries where there is a large population of really very poor people. And they are easy prey for people who want to. And in some states within India, it's actually a flourishing business. The security forces, the police, crack down on these syndicates that perpetrate this particular criminal business, but it still flourishes. The reason is because those poor people need the money.
Of course.
And the middlemen who know how to sell the story sell it well, and it is convincing. And even if, you see, there's a level of poverty where even if someone knows they might die, there's this feeling that they're going to leave something for their children. Because they tend to have children. And it's strange but true economically that among those who are very poor, they have very large families as well.
Of course.
So it is a problem that even as we look at, I sometimes wonder, what solution can they be, really?
What's the remedy?
Indeed.
Yeah. There's been discussions about a bit of changing the law so that the law outrightly bans people from donating for money. Because in Europe, where most of these beneficiaries have come from, this is illegal. Okay? They know, and that's the lady you're talking about. This is actually illegal, So they are looking, what has been happening here as an exploitation of a legal loophole. So it is upon our legislators then to seal this kind of loopholes and to be able to enforce the law, because whatever has been happening in regards to organ donation or trafficking, if you call it has not been happening in a vacuum.
No.
The government knows it.
Yes.
We interviewed enforcement officers. This is something that, but how do we, the question was always, under what law?
I think even as we talk about under what law, you see, this conversation around organ trafficking has been rife in this country for a very long time.
Of course.
You remember there's a time when the interwebs were abuzz, when the young people are saying, I just need to even donate my toe, and whatnot. And people joked around it. But now you sit and look back, you see that this is something that has been happening and people knew about it. But even when you go to what the international laws say, the UN protocol calls it, the Palermo Protocol actually requires state parties to criminalize trafficking, protect victims, and cooperate internationally, and urges countries to be part of this and ensure that there are laws in place. But even while at it, it says voluntary and unpaid donation, transparency and accountability, equitable access to transplantation, prohibition of organ trafficking, and transplant tourism as part of the guidelines that have been put by the UN. But still, it is to every individual country to put in place laws that decriminalizes organ trafficking and organ donation against the law. So it then goes back to what every other country must do to protect its own people.
Consider, in some of those countries in the West, the US is often quoted. If you look at the number of people who die while waiting for someone to donate, the US is 17 people per day.
Per day.
So per day. So if you're in one of those countries where there are these strict laws and you're waiting, and you know that what awaits you around the corner is death, and then someone tells you that there's a possibility for you to get a healthy kidney, and it means you will be alive. And you see, in those countries, even if you the operation is done outside the country, the care and treatment you will get after that transplant, you will live for a very long time, and you will live well, because they have healthcare system that work extremely well. Now you tell me, there is a demand, there is a possible supply.
What are you going to do?
Yes.
Isn't that how exploitation works, though?
Yeah,
exactly.
That there's got to be a demand on one side that, will be off color, and that's putting it at best. That will be off color in nature, but that we take advantage of that because, many would say the world is just not a fair place. But if you want to go back to the point that CT was making, and I wanted to hear from you, Dr. Willis, if there is an indication to that the folks who are selling their organs are not well-to-do.
Yeah.
They're not. There is a problem. There is an economic challenge, so much so that they can consider. So hadn't the root of that problem be what ought to be looked at as opposed to changing the law? Because you're going to change the law. Somebody's going to find a way around it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Somebody's going to find a way around it. Because is that not what we have? People traveling thousands of miles to come and get a kidney here because they found a way around the law. You can make it as much as you want, but if you don't deal with the issue that's making people sell these things in the first place, then you're giving the market an opportunity to thrive.
Definitely.
How do we approach those issues?
I think it's a massive problem, as you put it. It's because of poverty, and a lot of these guys I've said are, when we profile them, they are all within that profile of people that didn't go to school much. They don't have much to do currently. They're not earning any income. Mostly are unemployed people. So the question then is, how do we prevent them from donating or selling their kidneys if this is what they're doing for survival, because they're doing it because they don't have any other means? So it then goes down to the people that are responsible in governing this country. What is it that what kind of measures can they put in place to create opportunities for young people, so that they have alternatives, other alternatives to accessing livelihoods, rather than this thing of writing to KNH and saying how much for my kidney, because already this was happening, and it speaks to the level of desperation that young people are having, because you get out of high school and you realize that that's the end of it. How do you survive? So that it talks about coming up with initiatives that sustain these people economically, because that's what they're looking for, and that's what is lacking, and that's what is creating this loophole where the only option remaining is I can survive with one.
Yeah, because what gives? If you did have something that you were doing every day, and that was giving you something at the end of the day, the likelihood of you to think selling part of your body would then be much lower, I would reckon.
Exactly, because you see, and if you look at the pay that they're getting from selling, let's say 400,000. So this is a person probably who has never earned 20,000 shillings or 10,000 shillings. So 400,000 looks like a huge payday. Okay. And what do you do with it? You get your 400,000, you spend 150 on a motorbike, and maybe sort out your family members kidogo, and you're back to zero. So it's an illusion. It's a promise that doesn't exist.
Well, you're back to zero, literally, because then your health is also compromised.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think as well as we talk about empowering the young people economically and whatnot, there is also the need for medical professionals to equally just play their part. Because if you look at communities like the United States, there is huge demand as well, but you find the ethics with which the medical fraternity holds themselves in not breaking the law is also there. But here you find the laws of the country speaks to donating to a family member. But when you had this conversation here, the hospital was only keen on, we did the test, the donor came with the recipient, and that was it. So in terms of being fidelity to the law and to the calling of taking care of sick people in the land, I think also needs to be enforced.
Exactly.
The Ministry of Health has very strict regulations and rules, even about regarding the registration of a health facility. And they do regular checks. Believe me, they do. Just like they do the training institutions to ensure that the status that you have is commensurate with what and how you teach. You're talking about the staff complement and everything that goes into that process. It is not possible for something that people who have been talking about for this long not to have been known by the ministry.
Yes.
Definitely not.
The MPDU must have also known about this.
They did.
KMPDC as well.
Yes, so when all these bodies know all this, you have to ask, what was the scope and the scale of the beneficiaries from this? Because it's the issue of benefits that sometimes shuts mouths. But you keep quiet. And if so, how many other institutions? Because the focus has been on one big one. It can't be the only one.
It can't be the only one.
Yes.
From your investigations, do you see that there are tributaries, in or out, that could also be operating in this manner?
Yeah. So as we talk to young guys, they would mention that I know of somebody who did it in Kakamega. I know somebody who did it in Kapsabet. I know of somebody who did it in other places. So mostly in the western part of Kenya, if you take that part of it, it seems like there are smaller clinics that are participating or that are part of this kind of a network, and there was really no much difference in terms of who did it in Kakamega, how much they were paid, and who did it where, how much they were paid. So to me, it looks like a syndicate that is focused on getting the kidney and getting it to whoever needs it at that price. And it's big business, because as he was talking about, this guy is getting 400,000 and those guys selling it at 3.2 million, which is 200,000 euros. So I mean, the margin is huge. And of course, if you look at the number of young guys that are desperate for this kind of a thing, then it makes a lot of sense that these people want to make, this kind of profit on this.
Very quickly, Dr. Okumu, as we see that investigations lead to something, we're waiting to see what the law is going to say in terms of what's happening here. We've seen the revocation of licenses. We've seen, an audit being called upon by the Ministry of Health. But what would be your message from the investigation? You've seen some harrowing things. What would be your message today for folks who are still thinking, I could do this?
Well, I've seen despair in the eyes of people who have donated their kidneys, and for me, this despair is twofold. One, in the sense of looking at it from the eyes of the young guys, a lot of them are regretting it, and they realize that they've probably, wasted their life on this 400,000 money that they got out of this, and it was not worth it. So there needs to be a bit of public awareness on this front.
Indeed.
At the same time, I think the government dropped the ball big time, because this is something that is not news. If you look at I think the first article I saw was on the Standard, almost 2008, that was already talking about, the Standard newspaper talking about kidney trafficking in Nairobi, 2008.
Yeah.
So how many years since then?
Yeah, 17.
Yeah. So if this has been happening and is being published in a national newspaper, where have we been?
Indeed.
What have we done? Are we not failing the young people that we're already failing by not giving them opportunities? The government has dropped the ball.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Questions won't be asked. I want to thank you very much for being here this morning and shedding light. At the very least, those are things that we can continue to do from your investigations, and that we can say to people, no, we need to be very careful to see what's going on, preserving life, and then, also calling on saying, work needs to be done, and let's, get bootstraps up and get to work.
Yeah.
To making situations better for people.
Yeah.
Dr. Willis Okumu is a senior researcher at the Institute of Security Studies, has been our guest this hour. Thank you so much.
Asante.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.